G'day, Ty here from Geoterrics Outdoors Australia. Today we're going to be touching on one of my many hobbies, which is actually bonsai. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. So today we're going to be taking this one that's been in a training pot for about a year and a half. We're doing some weeding, a little bit of pruning, some repotting too. I'll take you through step by step of sort of the process and give you a little bit of insight of how it goes. Always save the moss if there's any. Step number one. Alright, step number two, let's go get a pot. Okay, so now we're at pot selection. We generally don't choose the pot for the plant. In traditional Japanese bonsai, the plant chooses its own pot. So what we're going to be doing is holding the plant up, looking at the pot to the plant, seeing our face, looking for our front. So every plant has its front, or what they call display side. And you need to sort of look to see what's the best position to display the tree. And I'm seeing about there. To me, that would be almost there. And again, the composition of the pot, it changes as we repot. So this isn't final, but for general purpose, I'm going to say just to start, we're going to use this. This will be our front. So I normally put a mark in my pot. And again, this is just a training pot, which has just been done to make the roots grow, ramification, get stronger, let the plant get healthier, and to grow all this out. So this plant, it flowers, and it's what we call a feminine plant. So any plant that flowers we call feminine plants. Plants that don't flower, and also plants that drop their leaves, deciduous plants, deciduous trees, they're classed as masculine. So we're going to be looking for a pot that's glazed or glossed. It's going to be a feminine pot, none of these dark brown or mellows, because when this does flower, it would take away from the beauty of the plant. So again, this is my front here. I've put a mark on the pot. I'm seeing the blue is always associated with the feminine plants. So I'm thinking a blue pot. We won't be going that small because the root ball that we've grown in this training pot is a bit too large to cut back that much. Our general rule is you only take about 30% off the root ball and about 30% off the foliage of the tree. I've been training this in this pot and slowly cutting it back. The talk Ralph and I had was to have steps sort of coming up to the plant. So it's been slowly trimmed and gently cut to give that effect. But in saying that, it's become a big plant and it has very, very strong roots. This plant is not weak, it's ready to repot. Okay, so we've decided on the feminine blue glazed pot. It's going to be a nice fit. It's not going to give too much shock to the root ball because it's roughly the same size as the pot that it's in. Okay, so now we have to deal with this problem. We don't want the roots growing out of our drainage hole. We also want some space in between it. I use gutter guard. You can get that from any local gardening or hardware store. It comes in meter lengths. I get gutter guard and I cut it into small pieces with scissors. Place that in the bottom of my pot. You get a piece of bonsai wire that you can buy, or any sort of wire you can use. Any wire. We fold it into a loop. Doesn't have to be perfect. We slide that through our gutter guard. We turn our pot and we spread the metal out, and that holds our drainage screen securely in place. And sometimes if you need, just use your pliers to push it down. Again, that's nice and fastened to the bottom and it won't be moving. So now our pot's prepped. All we need is our soil. So we're going to get into the substrate and the coir. So it's just, like I said, compressed coconut husk. It's coconut coir, as they know you ask any local garden store and they'll be able to provide you with this. We just add it to water. It's about 9 to 10 litres for the block this size, and it makes up, like it says on the front here, up to 30 litres. It has all the instructions, everything you need, so don't throw that, but I've done this up a few times, so we know what we're doing. Follow me. Okay, so we're going to put our coir brick into about 20 litres of water, as it says on the instructions. I do 20 litres in increments of 10, so I do 10 litres first and let it soak up. As you can see here, it slowly starts to expand and break apart, but what we want to do is get these dry bits moist, so it's an even soak and everything expands together. Like I said, this is only 10 litres in here now. I'm going to add another 10 litres slowly, because what you don't want is it to be waterlogged. We don't, so too much water. This here is perfect consistency. So adding the water in increments will give you that perfect, nice, light, fluffy texture that you need. And yeah, we're almost there. It doesn't hurt to break it up with your hands and get into it. Give it some, if you're impatient like I am, I always just rip it up. And that just really helps to get everything soaked in, just get it apart. Okay, so we have a bit of extra excess water from the expansion of the coir. Again, that's why I add it in increments and I do it slowly to see how it goes. But we don't want to waste any of this water because it actually is high in fertilizers and nutrients. So what I generally do is put it into a catch bucket like this. And if you look back this way, all of the dry contents here and the liquids slowly seeping down. So we just try to keep as much as you can. I think that'll do us. So our soil's about here, and we've added roughly about just a finger on top of that, as you can see, inside of perlite, vermiculite and sand. You want to mix that through thoroughly, make sure there's no bits at the bottom. Get all your perlite, vermiculite, sand mixed well through the soil, so we ultimately have this nice, airy, even textured, layered soil. Okay, so what we have is our final product here. It is a 20 part coir to 1 part vermiculite, 1 part perlite, and 1 part sand. And it should feel light and airy in the hands. So if you look nice and close here, the coconut husk and little fibers that travel through this soil, it's so good for transferring moisture, but at the same time holding it, and that's exactly what we want for bonsai. Okay, so we've picked our pot, we're ready to rock. We've prepped it with our drainage screen, we've sorted our soil. Now we need to get this plant out of its pot. Okay, so to get the plant out of the pot with the least amount of stress possible, just give it a light squeeze. We also want to grab just any sort of trowel or tool and gently release the roots from the side. And like I said, always save any moss you do find, because we'll put that on at the end and redress, which helps cover the roots and keep them moist so they don't dry out in this hot Australian climate. Okay, so I can already see the plants come loose. Just gonna give it a bit of tough love. She should come out nicely. What I normally do is put my pot upside down and I place my plant on top. So we're going to use a few tools. The humble chopstick is always the best, just for that initial breaking apart of the soil. So we want to keep the root ball intact, but at the same time we want to get away as much of the dirt that we don't need off. And as you can see, it's already getting a natural, we can see the root ball is very strong here. We have nice healthy white roots here. We're going to flip her on her side, and again, healthy white roots is what we want to see. I do a bit of a podgy hack job here, which is we'll cut to in a sec. A lot of people don't recommend this, but I find it's the best method, especially for these hardy trees that don't drop. This is an evergreen, it never drops its leaves, so it's very hardy. It can handle a good cutting. So before I cut into this, we just want to recheck the height of our plant with our pot. We're going to be taking, again, I always said the general rule of thumb is about 30% of the root ball off. So as you can see around here, we already have about, I'd say about 7% of the dirt off the top of the total pot. So we're going to place her on the side. Try not to put too much stress to the plant. Just going to take about a finger's width off the edge of this and just cut confidently, quick. Try not to jerk too much and just get through that. What we're trying to do is just cut off a nice bit of cake. When you get to the end, just grab some secateurs to cut these excess bits. And check this in the pot. So we have the right height, but we're going to have to remove some of this off the side. So I generally come straight down and I do in a square to match my pot. But again, keeping with that, leaving at least 70% of the root ball on. In saying that, a lot of these hardier evergreens can really handle a good chopping. So I like to keep all my old soil. I use it as reclaimed soil. You can add it to your compost. I like to recycle it all. It's, you know, it's not bad. It's always good to reuse, especially for the garden bed. So after looking at this plant, and again it's been in the pot for about 1.5 years, I didn't realize how root bound it was. And we could actually be a little bit chop happy with the root ball, and we've taken about 50 to 60% off. So now we have the main clump, and you can see it's very dense, and that's what we want. So we're going to leave it intact as much as we can, but because we've taken so much off the bottom, we need to equal it out to the top of the plant. So we'll be cutting off roughly between 30 to 50% as we did to the root ball. But in saying that, this is where the artistic and the art form comes in. This is where you take your time and you really enjoy what you're doing. There's a lot of videos and tips and tricks on the internet to show you how to do this to get ultimate ramification. And ramification is, you know, we want one branch going into 2 branches and 2 branches splitting into 4. And we want it to spread out, and we want the smallest tree to look like the biggest, oldest oak tree you've ever seen. Many videos on YouTube you can find to do this. But like I said again, if we take off the bottom, we need to take off the top. Because when we put it back into its new pot, the roots are going to try and feed all these leaves, and there's no more leaves to be fed by the roots we took off. So in doing this, we build more ramification. We make the branches spread out. We get back growth on the plant. It becomes stronger and healthier. But I also would recommend, after this step, do not fertilize your bonsai for at least 2 weeks. Let the roots heal. Let the cut ends that we've all exposed and all the edges, don't expose that to fertilizer. It's going to be in a lot of shock. You can imagine how much shock we've done to this poor thing by taking off all its roots, and now we're cutting all its hair. It's going to need a recovery time, so always give your plants that recovery time. So between repotting and trimming the roots and trimming the top of the tree, we want to keep the roots constantly wet because they will dry out, especially in a hot summer's day. So you want to remove branches going straight up and anything growing straight down. Especially for this design, it's not a formal upright, which would be directly straight. This is what they call an informal upright. But in saying that, there's certain rules to bonsai that you need to adhere. You don't need to adhere to, but I like to adhere to, because that's what keeps it traditional. That's what keeps it fun. So the certain rules are: cut anything growing down, cut anything growing up. Never have equal amounts of branches. So you never want 2. Always go for the 3. You'd never go for the 4. You'd always go for the 5. So we got to apply these rules every time we're trimming our bonsai. Sometimes you have to make a big cut. It's just not going with the flow of the tree. But again, this little branch here can be trimmed back, cut on a 45 degree, lose most of the foliage, and that can be repotted and grown as a cutting. But again, a lot of the times you have to make massive cuts. And some of these cuts, oh, they hurt you on the inside, but they just have to go. But again, another good cutting. So the difference between a good prune and a bad prune, about 6 months of regrowth. But the new pot should grow back lush and green very soon. Okay, so we've started on our pruning. We're starting to get the general shape that we're looking for. Have a general idea on the front of our plant, but we also have to look at our pot. We need to find the front of the pot, the side with the least blemishes, the most presentable side, really. So if I'm looking, I love the dark bits coming in. So these are all hand painted and every single pot is different. You have to find the face that you like the best, which you find the most pleasant to view. I normally push away from sides with blemishes or, you know, too much color or uneven coloring. So I feel like this is going to be the front of our pot. Okay, so I'm happy with this composition of this pot, the trim that we've done to the tree, and also the face of the tree. I feel like that's where we want it. Let's get to getting some soil in there and getting us settled into a new home. Okay, so before putting in some new soil, we need to get off as much as we can of the old soil. My general rule is comb from the middle of the plant to the outside in a sort of circle direction. Come from the bottom at the bottom, and we'll also turn the plant on its top, come from the top out. On this top area you want to be quite gentle. You don't want to break the roots, your main feeder roots that are keeping the top of your plant alive. So it's just very gentle. Should be a very zen process. Yeah. So we're going to get a different tool. Just the old humble chopstick again, just to get more soil out of those roots. Because again, we want to be putting in fresh soil, new soil with a lot of aeration, a lot of drainage, so these roots and the foliage on the plant can grow as much, as strong as it can. If you feed the nutrients and fertilizer to the plant, doesn't matter how small the pot is, you can keep it going and it'll keep growing. So now that we've gotten the excess soil, the old soil off, we just want to cut these roots back nice and flush. We want a flat root ball so we can position her in our pot easier. So now we have our pot prepped with our drainage screen in there. We're going to put some soil at the base, and that'll give us something to push down on. With this coconut coir, you sometimes do have big chunks of coconut. I did put that aside, use it for something else, but it doesn't work in our bonsai soil. I normally sift through it just to check if there's any big chunks and remove them. Put about a centimetre layer at the bottom, and that helps us position our plant. So we're going to look for the front of our pot again, and we're going to look for the front of our plant. Okay, so with our soil at the base to give us the angle and composition we want for the plant in our pot. We're going to slowly fill in on the sides. Doesn't matter if it's even at this point. We're going to be using the old humble chopstick, which is honestly one of the most efficient tools at pushing this substrate into the little air pockets and gaps in between the roots. Process is, if you do leave air pockets, there's areas for your plant to dry out, and then your bonsai's sayonara. Looks good. So we want to put our moss close to the base of the tree, and what that does is prevent those roots that are high up on the root ball from drying out before the rest of the soil does. And it also gives it just such a beautiful aesthetic. Makes it look like it's been there for a very long time. And don't be shy with this, because we're going to water this moss in. And the more you sort of stress it and bash your moss up, the moss releases spores and it spreads across your soil, and it helps it to get around and well established around your bonsai. A lot of people say the moss around your bonsai isn't good. It steals the nutrients from the plant, but in Australia, I disagree. It saves your plants if you forget to water. Like I said before, if you put enough nutrients in the smallest pot, you could have a tree like this growing in a saucer or a side plate. So ultimately what we're looking for is the water to be running clear through the bottom of the pot, so we know that it is well saturated. There's no air pockets left in there. And like I said before, I can't stress enough the importance of the air pockets, taking that extra effort to use your chopstick or your trowel or whatever tool you're using to get that in deep. I'm not liking the way this branch was growing in. It's just confused. We don't want branches crossing each other. It looks messy. And this top branch was our apex. It was our top of our plant. We're going to take it back to these two little shoots. Hopefully they're going to spread out. And like I said, with ramification, we want 1 to 2, 2 to 4. And keep it going. So we're not pruning for the aesthetics now. We're pruning for the future growth that's going to come. We need to always look at our bonsai. These things are, as they say, great things take time, and this is the quintessential great things take time. You cut for later, you don't cut for now. It's gonna look horrible. It looks, what the hell have I done to it? But you wait until all these shoots start growing back, and we're gonna have ramification and beautiful new shoots and new growth, and it's just gonna add to the character of the plant. So if you enjoyed this video, please share with a friend, like and subscribe for future content coming soon. Thanks for watching.